All right, everybody, welcome to Franchise Wars. And for the first time, we're not just doing a podcast, we're doing a video. I, of course, am the Hopper, the guy who hosts most of the YouTube videos, and this is the Condor. Say hello, Condor.
Hi, folks. Finally got me on camera. So here I am, excited to finally be here. Or this will be an unmitigated disaster, which might be my last time on YouTube. So we'll just see how this goes.
Hey, you're not the one editing it, I am. So that's going to be a little bit weird.
Hey, if you have to replace me with a sock puppet eventually, if this is bad, no hard feelings. I get it.
Yeah, just make sure that it's a Socko that can do the claw, okay? Like, okay? Make sure it's that kind of sock.
He gets it.
All right. So, this is going to kind of be a video to actually kind of like hallmark a series of episodes we've had previously on the podcast. You see, we've done a little sub-series of Batman animated movie tournaments. This is kind of a phase 1 movie tournament. We're not doing all the Batman animated movies. That's honestly closer to like 35 movies than anything else, I think. I haven't done the actual math, but I mean, there's an entire subtext version that's like, just the Batman New 52 movies. Then you've got The Dark Knight Returns. You've also got 2 Batman animated series movies we're not talking about, and that one Batman Beyond one. So we're just sticking with a smaller selection of movies here for kind of a phase 1 movie idea. So, we've had a bunch of these movies kind of be reviewed here, so hopefully I'm going to let the Condor actually kind of like review our process.
Our process was basically, well, if you go back to the 4 episodes where we argued all of these movies, basically what we did is we picked movies based on categories in this phase 1. So we did an origins, I'm calling them region because there's going to be a lot of sports analogies in this whole thing. So we had a origins region, we had a tie-ins region, which was movies that sort of tied into a larger property, if you will. We had what we were kind of lovingly called an Elseworlds property, or region, I should say, where basically it was Batman stories set not in the regular Gotham universe. And then our last one was reimaginings, which took existing Batman comics and either tweaked, altered, or otherwise turned them into films from existing comics. So, if you'd like me to, I can go through the winners of each one.
Yeah, let's go ahead and let you do that. I'm going to let you go ahead and actually introduce these films, starting with number 4, 3, 2, 1, and you can even break down the actual conflicts we had, and then we'll do a seeding period.
Yes. So our number 4 video that we did was so our 4 seed, so we're kind of counting up here. Our 4 seed is actually Gotham Knight. It was a 2008 animated film that actually was tying into the release of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight. This one was matched up against Batman Assault on Arkham, which was a movie tie-in to the Arkham video game series. And I believe at the time that movie was released, they were really hard promoting Gotham or Arkham Knight. I'm pretty sure that was the movie that we said they were trying to tie in with. Our biggest conflict with that one was just the fact that Arkham Knight kind of made you want to go back and rediscover other parts of the Arkham universe, like replay the video games especially. Gotham Knight, we kind of like closed out with, I just really wanted to go back and rewatch Gotham Knight, so that's why it won its region of tie-ins. Our number 3 was the Gotham by Gaslight. That was in our Elseworlds region. It was matched up against Batman Ninja.
Which was a crazy, crazy, crazy movie.
Really fun to watch. We both agreed that, but I think what really kind of like gave Gotham by Gaslight the edge is that if you're explaining Gotham by Gaslight to the layperson, it's not too hard to explain. And yet Batman Ninja had so many crazy parts in it that if you're trying to explain to somebody who was even well versed in the Batman universe, they would struggle with this. So that is our 3 seed. Our 2 seed, the most contentious episode we did in this whole thing. It was our Origins region. And I don't think I'm completely over it, if we're being honest. Our Origins region consisted of Batman Year One and Batman Mask of the Phantasm. This was the one that had to end in a fan vote because Hopper and I did not agree at all about who should come out of this one. Now, I stand by where I feel on these movies, but Mask of the Phantasm did pull through to become our 2 seed, and our number 1 overall seed is the Reimaginings winner, which was Batman Under the Red Hood, which was matched up against Batman the Killing Joke. I can only speak for myself in saying that for most of the Killing Joke, I did not mind that movie. It is very controversial with some of the choices that they made, but this was a better reimagining. In fact, I'm pretty sure people consider this one to be more canon than the stuff that actually happened in the comics. So, those are our 4 seeds. In fact, as I promised in the podcast previous to this, I did a little bit of an arts and crafts project here. I made a bracket. So this thing actually represents our 4 movies and actually has them seated as Hopper and I basically agreed to putting them as far as more or less our opinions and everything else. So before we begin talking about our matchups here, do you have any thoughts on, or any new thoughts on any of these films?
Well, I did want to offer my condolences to you. You see, I understand that when we talked about, Mask of the Phantasm versus Batman Year One, what was the character whose, neglection really ticked you off about Mask of the Phantasm?
It was Jim Gordon. That movie was basically devoid of him for the most part.
Well, I did some thinking about most of the movies we've got here, especially the 4 here, and it's not so good overall from that viewpoint. I mean, Under the Red Hood has Gordon for a few seconds. That's it. Mask of the Phantasm has Gordon for a few seconds. That's it. Gotham Knight does have Gordon. He does show up a little bit, but again, only a few seconds. Hey, good news, good news. Gotham by Gaslight has plenty of James Gordon as the bad guy.
I'll take what I can get. It's funny because I knew you... I was thinking about that as you were saying all that. I was like, yeah, he was barely in that one. Barely in that one. Barely in that. He was in that one a lot. He was killing people. Never mind. So I did get a Jim Gordon fix, so no problems there.
And honestly, for Phase 2, we can go ahead and do Dark Knight Returns, and that'll give you the Gordon you really love, because that's a film that actually manages, I think, to actually have a better version of Bruce Wayne and James Gordon in the same film, both sharing double duty as protagonists, whereas I think Batman Year One is still a little bit more of a Jim Gordon movie, where Batman's kind of more of a supporting character. That was kind of my dig against it, but in Dark Knight Returns, that's just pretty much, we're all angry old men and we're going to have fun beating up these new bad guys. Except for Gordon. He's just kind of sad, taking comfort in his new wife.
Well, anyway, we got some regions to break down here and some seeds to get through so we can get on to what is going to be one step further to crowning our Batman Phase 1 animated movie tournament. This title keeps getting longer. So I figured we could go ahead and maybe start with the 2-3 matchup. So on our bracket that we've got here, our 2-3 matchup, as you can see, is Batman Mask of the Phantasm versus Batman Gotham by Gaslight. Now, this is kind of an interesting matchup because Mask of the Phantasm is still very much regarded as maybe one of the best Batman movies ever made, not just in the animated sense. And Gotham by Gaslight only came out last year, so it definitely doesn't have the legs as far as a time stamp or anything to really kind of base a lot of opinions based off of. Now, what are your thoughts on the strengths of maybe Mask of the Phantasm over Gotham by Gaslight?
One advantage they both share that I do think ends up swinging more towards Mask of the Phantasm as time goes on is they're both very big on character and story. There's actually a part here that basically echoes across both films. Mask of the Phantasm, a part where, Bruce Wayne as Batman's trying to get away from the cops, ends up being rescued by his girlfriend in the film, whereas, in Gotham by Gaslight, he does the same thing. He's running away from the cops, gets rescued by his girlfriend. And as much as I like Selina Kyle and say that she's probably the best pick for, Batman's sweetheart, I think in a way, kind of the more serious, noirish, and tragic ending of Mask of the Phantasm maybe gives it quite a bit of an edge, because there's a real tragedy at the heart of Mask of the Phantasm, where he does still love Andrea, but she's become a villain, he's become a hero. And on top of that, as good as evil James Gordon is, and I would say that the performance is very good for making you hate Jack the Ripper, I'd have to say that Mark Hamill really first flexing his muscles and going insane as the Joker is the real trump card here. This was the first time I'd heard of Hamill supposedly practicing different versions of his laugh for different scenes. And it comes through. Like when the whole place catches on fire and Hamill just busts out that really twisted Joker laugh with, the bloody teeth and everything. Oh man, that's hard to beat, don't you think?
I do, and the funny thing is, like, I still kind of like stand where I stand on the entire thing about how I feel about Mask of the Phantasm. And if you don't know, if you haven't heard that episode, I think it's a little bit overrated. But I do think that it does a lot of stuff very well, and I think that's mostly attributes to how strong Batman the Animated Series was able to do what it did. So I'm kind of with you on all those fronts. I do think that it does show some very strong sides of the Bruce Wayne / Batman character. I do think that the ending rings very true with what you're saying about the conflict arisen between him and Andrea. So it does have those things going for it. Gotham by Gaslight's actually a very fun film. I really enjoyed watching it the very first time, so there's absolutely nothing I've got going against it, except maybe I want to say that one of the things I could argue for Gotham by Gaslight may be the animation's just a little bit stronger. And I know that may be sacrilege to Batman the Animated Series fans, but with it being a newer film, I do think that it does have that going for it. However, I do think that maybe when you kind of compare them side by side, I think Mask of the Phantasm maybe does have a little bit more going for it, besides being just sort of like kind of a crazy reimagining in the Victorian era that Gotham by Gaslight did. So unless you have any objections, I'm totally willing to go ahead and move Mask of the Phantasm on to the next round.
I'm good with that.
All right. Well, before I go ahead and place it, I do think we need to go ahead and talk about the other matchup that we've got, which is our 1-4. The number 1 seed, of course, is Under the Red Hood going up against Gotham Knight. Now, I do want to go ahead and also point out that being a 4 seed does not mean it's the worst of this bunch, because that is very far from the truth. I do think that being a 4 seed in this situation, though, does mean that you've maybe got a few more things going against you than you do maybe the 1 seed. The 1 seed, of course, is Gotham by Gaslight, which is, like I said, the sort of reimagining of the Red Hood origin story, which is basically the resurrection of Jason Todd. If you go back and listen to that episode on our podcast, it's actually kind of a fun conversation about what was different from the comic versus what this movie did to sort of reintroduce Jason Todd / Red Hood to the world and the Batverse. So I do think that what this one was able to accomplish is a much stronger feat. Now, I loved Gotham Knight. I did think that maybe of the 4 of them, I probably enjoyed rediscovering it the most, or maybe discovering is it maybe a better way to put it for some of these movies. But it's not the worst, but I do think it being sort of an anthology series with a multitude of different animation styles, it can take you out of it a little bit. Like, it was fun at the time, and I do think that it was the right movie to pull out of the 2 that we were talking about with the tie-ins. But I do think that with it being the anthology style, it does hurt it just a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd agree. To me, the biggest advantage of Under the Red Hood is that it has more time to flesh out its entire story and all of its character arcs. By the time you get to the final confrontation in Red Hood's lair, there's a lot of power behind Batman, Joker, and Red Hood, and it's a very emotionally cathartic moment when the film ends and you're exhausted and know there hasn't really been a resolution, but it's been a great ride.
Yeah, so I do think that both movies are very strong, and like I said, being a 4 seed in this situation is not a bad thing at all. I just think that where we put it, I think that it would have been maybe a struggle for it to advance no matter who we put it up against, maybe with one exception, which I'm not even going to get into right now. But I will say that given that I do not have any problem moving Under the Red Hood into the next round, which I guess is the finals. So if you're wondering what I'm looking at, I have Kat down here with me. So unless you have any thoughts. All right. So, advancing out of this side of the bracket will be Batman Under the Red Hood. So that's going to take the top spot, and it is going to be matched up against quite the juggernaut in most Bat fans' minds, which is Batman Mask of the Phantasm. So these are your finalists out of this year-long journey through animated Bat film. So, next week's episode, we're going to finalize this whole thing by having a breakdown of Batman Under the Red Hood versus Batman Mask of the Phantasm. That's actually kind of a juggernaut matchup. I wouldn't hesitate to call that the Clemson-Alabama matchup that we could have possibly come up with. And for this year, definitely. And I also do not want to make too much work for Hopper, but in the description for this video, I believe we're going to come up with some sort of online voting system so that the fans get maybe the lion's share of the vote of who wins this whole thing. So, having any closing comments on this?
Just that fans who watch this video, or who are just fans of Batman in general, should check out next week's episode. This is kind of the favorites match for who should actually be the best movie overall. I think these films both have high ratings on Rotten Tomatoes, and yeah, it should be fun. So thanks for watching.
This has been a fun debut, folks. Maybe I'll do this more often. Maybe.